Hey, how you doing? It's Clayton here from howtodrawcomics.net and the How to Draw Comics Academy. And I'm joined tonight for the HTDC podcast comeback with none other than our special guest, Patrick Blaine, comic book artist, creator, and, well, brilliant genius fan of the 90s, because anyone who's a fan of the 90s comic era has brilliant taste in comic art and comics in general. So welcome, Patrick. It's amazing to have you here. And I'm really excited to talk to you because we've been buddies for a little while on the old Facebooks and whatnot.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This is a real honor and it's a treat. So this is exciting for me. And when it comes to 90s comics and stuff, I think I've come to the right place because that's in my soul. So, yeah.
Oh, you and me both, my friend. Yeah. You know I love it. You can see it in my work, and I can see it in the energy and the soul of your art too. In fact, one of the reasons that Patrick and I started chatting is because I reached out to him once upon a time. It didn't end up happening in the long run, but I wanted to hire him to do a commission on my comic book project Borok, which is still alive. It's still out. It's still coming. Okay, it'll be there at some point. It's just finding the time, right? Am I right, Patrick?
Right.
You want to do so much in life, especially as a creative, but...
Yep. Yeah, that's a great looking project too. So I hope you come back to that and just unleash it on the world.
Oh, yeah. I plan to. I want to. There's some meaning in that I want to get out there into the world. And that's why we create comics, right? We got a message. Yes. Some we want to tell everybody else, and comic books are just the best way to get that message across sometimes.
Well, I agree. There's nothing to me as a creator that's more satisfying than holding that book in your hand after spending months creating it. You know, it's like you have a piece of your life just in your hand, and you can show this is what I did with my time here on Earth, you know? And
there's nothing quite like it.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful feeling. So, Patrick, now I didn't know this, but just before we started this podcast, you were telling me how you were in the studio at Top Cow with freaking Michael Turner and a bunch of other really awesome artists who I look up to and admire, and I was absolutely blown away by it. You might not have been able to tell it on my face because I'm a pretty expressionless dude, but tell me about like your history in the comic book industry. Like, where have you been? Where did you start? And what made you want to create comics in the first place?
Oh my goodness, where to even start?
Big question. I know. I just kind of packed the questions on there. Big questions.
But I'm sure just like you, and I know a lot of your viewers are artists as well, we just have that drive in us to start drawing as little kids usually. And that's where it started with me as well, where I'm always the kid in class drawing and that kind of thing. I'm sure you can relate to that.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
I was exactly that kid.
Yeah. And all the other kids are socializing. I was in the corner drawing Godzilla, you know, and Rodan and all the monsters. And so, but anyways, in high school, here in Spokane, Washington, there's a college called Eastern Washington University, and Todd McFarlane was going there. He was on their baseball team, and he was, there was one comic shop in town, and he would sometimes go down and work there. And he just broke into comics, and he was doing Scorpio Rose and Infinity Inc. for DC. And so I would go in there as a teenager and just see this guy making comic books. And I was like, this is my hero. And I'd talk to him, and he'd show me all of his pages. And he was doing just crazy stuff. Like there'd be panels where someone's on the phone, but the phone cord would wrap around the entire page, and it'd be the border. And it was like, I'd never seen anything like that before. So that was my first hero in comics. And it's funny because when I broke in at Image Comics, the very first thing that I had printed was a pinup in Spawn number 36. And so it kind of felt like a full circle moment for me. Like I touched my hero a little bit, you know?
That's crazy. So you worked on a piece that was featured in Spawn.
Yeah.
And you met Todd McFarlane? Like you hung out with him?
I've hung only when I was a kid. I haven't met him as an adult, but I've had a lot of friends that have worked for him. But what happened was another guy that lived in a city nearby me was Chance Wolf. Do you know who he is? He's a inker. He inked all of Shadowhawk for Jim Valentino. And he also did the Pit logo and the Max logo, and he lettered the first issue of Pit. So, and he painted the race car for Todd McFarlane that he had for a while there.
Whoa, really? That's
Really cool.
amazing.
Yeah. And he needed some assistance to help him with some stuff. And he came up to Spokane and met me and Jason Gorder, who was another ink. He went on to become an inker for Top Cow for many, many years as well. He was my best buddy at the time. So, yeah.
That's
So,
nice.
yeah. So through chance, I got to show my work to Jim Valentino. I was doing assistant work on Shadowhawk number 13, which Chance was drawing. And when Jim Valentino kind of figured out I was an assistant that was in the group, he gave me a shot at doing a spin-off of Shadowhawk called The Others. And so I started doing that. I actually did issue 15 of Shadowhawk first, which guest starred The Others. And so, yeah, we did a spin-off of that for about a year. That was like 1994. And
It's amazing. What a great time to be a comic book artist.
Gosh, yeah, me and Jason were so excited to break into comics right then because everybody, there was the legendary, sales back then where people were buying houses for their moms and, just all this crazy money was flying around and we thought we're going to get in on that. But
did you? Did you make some bank?
We got in there right at the tail end of stuff and it just didn't really happen for us. But it was exciting to be there anyways. And I remember the first year I went to San Diego Con was 94. And that's when I met Jim and all those guys. And he had a party at his house after the convention in San Juan Capistrano. And all the Image guys went to that party. And so I got to meet all the Extreme guys and all these things. And I was showing my portfolio, I think, to Eric Stevenson. And in my portfolio, I had like some Pit versus Spawn art that I did as samples. And a guy was looking over Eric Stevenson's shoulder and I said, hey, if you do a pinup of that Violator clown, I'll put it in Spawn. And I was like, oh, that sounds good. And it was Terry Fitzgerald, who was buddy. And so that's how I got that pinup job. And then it's funny because years later, I didn't know this at the time, but I was talking to Michael Turner and he said that he was there at that party and that he was looking over his shoulder as well at my portfolio as they were reviewing it. And I was like, and this is before he became huge Michael Turner,
Damn.
So I felt so crazy that I had that kind of brush with Mike back before any of us, we're doing anything really in comics yet. So so that was crazy. But
how did you even get in with that crowd? So you went to college. Right. And then, what's the missing link there? How did you go from college into that world of comics? Like, how did you score the gig? Did you send a letter to the right person? Did they see your portfolio? I mean, we didn't have the internet back then, so you had to seek that kind of thing out, that kind of opportunity.
Oh, I had been sending out portfolio, sample pages to every company I could think of for years. And of course, getting all the rejection letters, and you're just not ready yet, kids, that kind of thing. And that we all got those. But what happened was my buddy Jason started getting work as an ink assistant for Klaus Janson, and they were inking Lee Weeks on some Daredevil project, I think. And but anyways, Chance Wolf was looking for an ink assistant, and he happened to meet Jason at some convention or something here in Spokane, and so that's how I got in, was through Chance Wolf, and he got me, into the Shadowline studio. And for a while, the Jim Valentino wanted to do like a studio, like Extreme had, and Top and Wildstorm, but it was going to be me and Chance Wolf and Randy Queen and Walter McDaniel and a bunch of these other guys that were working with Jim at the time. But it just never happened for a few reasons, and mostly because that's when the whole big bubble of Image kind of imploded, was right around 95.
95, huh? Okay, so that's earlier than I initially thought. Yeah. But there was still a lot of really cool comic books coming out back then.
Oh, yeah.
It was amazing, you had Wildcats, you had Cyberforce, and
I love it.
And then how?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say
we're both excited here. Yeah, you can tell.
Well, me too. I get excited talking about this. Because like what Dale was doing with Pit, I mean, that just was that was everything to me. Drawing monsters with big muscles and claws. I mean, that was nothing cooler than that. And the things that came out, and even in the later part of the 90s, there were two comics that I just think of even to this day as being like the pinnacle of 90s work. And I bet you could probably guess one of them. And which would be X-Men Wildcats Golden Years by Travis Charest. That
Wow.
was amazing.
Yeah.
And I guess that was more mid 90s. And at one of the San Diego cons, he had his originals hanging up in one of the rooms upstairs.
Travis Charest.
Yeah.
Oh
So I
yeah.
got to see those original pages, and that was like insane. They were immaculate and beautiful, like God created them somehow from just from lightning and magic. So
yeah, and what an awesome source of inspiration as
oh,
well. I mean, it's no wonder like our generation really got influenced by such an energetic and powerful comic art style. You know, I feel a little bit sorry for the comic artists of today who are young and up and coming, because I don't know, that same flavor just isn't there in the mainstream anymore. I mean, that was over the top craziness.
yeah.
It's hard to capture that and to find a comic that actually represents it these days.
Yeah, and the neat thing about Travis was that you saw him start out as a very Jim Lee kind of clone almost, but then he sort of turned a corner and just became a legendary, unique artist in his own right. And seeing that happen made you think, if he can do it, I can do it, you know? And that was inspiring.
Yeah, totally. And you see that happen with artists. Like Michael Turner brought to the table a very unique style. And I love his story as well, coming into Top Cow, because he wasn't a trained artist, I don't think. Mark Silvestri sort of showed in the ropes, but then he just took what he was given and he made magic with it, started drawing all this crazy stuff. And you know what was nuts is after a while, you saw Mark Silvestri's art style starting to go toward Michael Turner's art style, because Michael Turner had just leveled up like insanely.
Yeah.
And I think Mark Silvestri, he loved what he was seeing there, and you just saw that influence trickle into Mark's work.
Same thing happened at Wildstorm with Jim Lee and J. Scott Campbell. The master and the student sort of flip-flopped after a while, and you saw a lot of J. Scott going into Jim Lee's art.
There you go. Yeah, for sure.
But
it's awesome.
Oh, yeah. The other comic that I was thinking about from the 90s that really impressed me was Claudio Castellini's Silver Surfer Dangerous Artifacts. Have you seen that?
Dangerous Artifacts.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the name rings a bell.
It's amazing. I'll have to send you some pics from that. You'll see what I'm talking about, because that guy's a master. Just when you look at that stuff, it just feels like you're witnessing something special, you know? I think he spent a year on that one book. It's a really big issue, but he's got a lot of like John Buscema in him, and but taken to a level like it's almost like John Buscema with an image polish on it. It's just so
that's
impressive.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, John Buscema, man, let alone that generation of artists, right? Like from the freaking 80s and even going back to the 70s. I mean, there was some amazing stuff back then too. So comics have had a history, an evolution of comic book art style that has just influenced one after the other, except the 90s kind of faded off a little bit, and now we're at a point in time within the mainstream where I don't know. I don't know what do you think's happened? What happened with that awesome, crazy, energetic, powerful, punch you in the face comic art style of the 90s? Why has it kind of really started to dilute?
I don't know. I think it's interesting, because I think what happened in the Image years was that because remember in the 70s and 80s on the comics I grew up reading, it was more cartooning. It was more like looking at animation drawn on a page, where there wasn't a lot of shadows. I mean, you had guys like Neil Adams and guys like that elevated it to illustrative levels. But when you looked at John Buscema or Herb Trimpe, who was another one of my favorites, those guys, they were cartooning, but what the Image guys did, I think they started bringing more illustrative, like quality to every page where it was like a beautiful piece of artwork in and of itself, you know? And,
Yeah, for sure.
and I think it was interesting seeing what, like, I noticed this a lot at Top Cow and a Wildstorm, where even the page design became a whole different thing, where there was like one central image, and then the story was being told around it, kind of, but it was still it still worked, but you had that one image in there that was just beautiful. And I remember Dave Finch started doing this on Cyberforce, and I was just like, and Joe Benitez would do this too, and you just look at it and go, I just want to hang that on my wall. You know, it's
totally. Yeah, like every panel was magical.
Yeah.
And memorable too. Like
Yeah.
you could, for me, I'm gonna tell you, Patrick, what really just got me addicted to the idea of being a comic book artist was Greg Capullo's work on Spawn.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that and I was just like, how is this even possible? Like, this is on another level.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that and I was just like, wow, to be able to draw like that, to create that. I was like, I'll never probably be able to do it, but it sure as hell got me on the road to pursuing it.
No, you're there, man. I could see
Yeah.
the quality in your work too. You have that image kind of magic in your work. It's hard to teach what that is to people. It's just kind of a quality, like we were talking before we came on the podcast. There's a coolness factor, that all those image books had that is hard to explain or teach. But but when it comes to Greg Capullo, when he did Creech, my brain exploded.
Oh yeah, Creech was another one. It was absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, that page where it's like it's a sideways double pager, and it's him standing there for the first time, and it's just like, when I saw that, I was just, it just changed my life. I was like, I got to be like this guy.
Yeah, no, for sure. So you eventually left the comic book industry, Patrick. So how did that happen? Why did it happen? And what did you get into afterwards?
Well, what happened was I was doing some, after Shadowline, that whole job ended. I was working in comics off and on and just doing smaller jobs here and there. But at one point, I sent samples to my friend Jason Gorder, who was at Top Cow as an inker at that point in the studio. And Mark saw something in my work, and he said, have him come down and he can join the studio as a penciling intern, and I'll just teach him how to like fix all of his mistakes and make great art, and I was like, I'm there. And I was flat broke. I just went down there with nothing. And so I was actually living on a friend's couch down there and going into the studio every day and just learning. And I remember the first time I went in to show my work, everybody's like, you got to go in and show your work to Mark and get him to talk to you and make sure he knows you're here and like you want to learn from him. And so I went in there. The first impression I made of Mark Silvestri is I went in there and he was in his office working, really cool, fancy office. And I go and he, introduced myself and I gave him my pages I was working on. And then I kind of backed up because I wanted to give him some space. And I knocked into his drawing table and he had a bunch of stuff all over it, like pencils, things, everything. And everything went sliding off onto the ground. And so I just destroyed his whole workstation. So I was like, there's my first impression of Mark Silvestri. I can never get back. So
what did he do? Did he get angry? Did he?
Oh, no, he's the nicest.
Cranky kind of dude.
Not
really
at all.
nice. It's okay, Patrick. Don't worry about it.
He's one of the nicest guys ever. And I remember meeting him years before that. And I remember saying, it's such a pleasure to meet you. And he said, no, the pleasure's all mine. And I'm like, wow, what a nice thing to say, because that's clearly not. It's all me. So yeah, he's just a great guy. He didn't care. He's like, don't worry about it. I'll just clean it up. And I was like, oh, okay. But he gave me some great pointers and stuff. And so I was just coming into the studio and just learning as much as I could from him. And he would walk around the studios at night sometimes when some of us were in the bullpen working. And whenever he'd stop at somebody's desk, everybody would pay attention to what he would be saying to that person because he wanted to learn. And so we'd all And
what an amazing opportunity.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's crazy. And so he would sometimes grab an eraser and just start erasing whatever we were working on and say, you don't need any of this stuff here. Just get rid of all this stuff. You're making it too busy. You need to know how to draw the eye to the important parts and let the page breathe and create interesting negative shapes that aren't just filled with stuff everywhere, And so we all tried to learn everything we could from that. And so, yeah, it was a magical time just being in that studio and seeing and being right next to like Michael Turner and those guys. It was just really surreal because I looked up to these guys and really amazing group of people. So,
and do you feel like being in that environment with that much talent, did it help to influence your own work? Did you find that you leveled up because of them, that you were held accountable in a way, that you had to keep up with these crazy talented individuals? They say that you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with most of the time, and that's why it's so good to be in that sort of environment. Do you feel like that effect rubbed off on you a little bit?
Oh, big time. Yeah, I never got more improvement in my own work than in that 1 year I was there. I mean, it just changed radically because you're looking at originals. And it's different to look at originals rather than looking at the printed comic page. When
you're seeing them work and create those originals.
Right. And just seeing black and white inked artwork on a board is, to me, magical. It just looks like it's carved in stone, but like in a beautiful way. Whereas if you just see it in print, it just feels like you're just, a comic book. We read a million of them. But the originals, it's like it's an awe-inspiring thing. And you can see the craftsmanship that goes into it and the size it is and everything. And so, that changed me forever. And it was incredible. But you were asking about how I ended up going out of comics. But
yeah, this is what happens, man. I mean, it's so fun, these podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Because I feel like it's just 2 buddies, we're catching up, talking comic books. And, in reality, that's the way a conversation would go, is it'd go all over the place. But yes.
Exactly.
What happened, man? I mean, you're chilling out with the Image guys. You were making some cool stuff. And then...
It came down to economics for me. I was living on my buddy R.V. Valdez's couch. He was another penciling intern. But he was about to get married, so I couldn't be flopping on his couch, but he got his wife there with him. So I was like, I gotta make some money and get my own place. And 2 of the guys from the studio, Clarence Lansing and Ku Cha, were working at a ad firm that was right downtown in Beverly Hills off Rodeo Drive, really fancy place called Sinegar Advertising. And that's the place where Drew Struzan worked and created all his iconic movie posters for Goonies and all that stuff.
Oh, cool.
Very impressive place. So I ended up going in there too and showing them my portfolio and ended up getting work there. And so that's what sort of, and I went from being flat broke doing, spotting blacks for Bat and Jay Lyston and other inkers that were there. I do that for like $20 a page. But I went from that to making like $300 a day in advertising.
Whoa, yeah.
It's hard to ignore that when that's calling you,
That's the reality, man. I've heard that actually even today. You hear it from storyboarders and other people who work in more, I guess you could say, comic books are commercial, but even more commercial fields.
Yeah.
That's where the big money is at for artists, and that's the sad reality of it. Right. Unless you can kind of make the self-publishing, which we're going to talk about, work for you.
Right.
But yeah, you went into that and you were making the big bucks. Well, and how did it feel? Was it?
It was amazing, and they liked the creative director there. Really liked comic book artists because we could create stuff out of our head. We didn't have to have tons of reference and stuff. We knew how to draw the human form, and so he really loved having us comic book artists in there. So me and Ku and Clarence would just go in there every day and just draw stuff, and we'd have to use Copic marker or just markers to create gray tones and stuff like that. And this was right when Photoshop started happening, when everybody was sort of switching over into all the graphic designers were using Photoshop, and we as illustrators had always been kind of traditional up to that point. We all started learning Photoshop on the job. And so that's where I learned that. The creative director there quit that job and started a new company, and he took all the creative talent with him.
Yeah, right.
Me and Clarence. And so we went to this new company called Petrol Advertising, and me and Clarence were the 2 artists there for the first 6 years of that company. And awesome. It was like being in the trenches though, because one day I'm drawing SpongeBob stuff, next day I'm drawing cars for Need for Speed or God of War, or something
Wow.
like that.
So still really fun projects to
Yeah.
work on.
Yeah, it wasn't just like
Awesome.
advertising bananas or Cadillacs.
Yeah.
We were working on video game stuff
You
mostly.
didn't have to like draw vacuum cleaners and whatnot.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So it was a fun job, but my heart was always in comic books, and
Yeah, no, for sure. And that must have been a pretty big decision to actually leave comics, which was your dream.
yeah,
You'd made it, you'd gotten to the top, and then stepping back away from it to advertising, which probably felt like a responsible decision, but maybe a step back from actually fulfilling that childhood dream of being a comic book artist.
yeah, yeah. And it was a hard decision, but it's like I didn't intend on staying there in advertising as long as I did. It just sort of happens that way, because
No, for sure.
I had no car to about a Corvette that I loved. I still have it, and I was driving cars that I liked, and I had money, and so that just becomes like, okay, this is a grown-up thing to do. I can't make it just doing comic books. But then later on, Top Cow had me draw like an issue of The Darkness, and
Cool.
but I was so
They still called you up.
yeah. Renee Geerlings called me up, and while I was in advertising, said, "You want to draw an issue of this? It's a tie-in to the video game they were releasing for The Darkness." And so I worked on that.
Nice. I remember that.
But it's like and I was so out of practice though drawing comic book stuff that I was rusty. And,
right.
Yeah, and they told me afterward, Mark likes your stuff. He said you can come back into the studio, but he needs, he wants to help you iron out some of that rust that you've gotten working outside of comics. And I was like, I want to do it, but they just couldn't offer much money, so I just couldn't justify, because I had to pay my rent. I didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
So
That's brutal. So how much money ballpark are we talking here for working on comics back in that particular point?
Right then, comics had kind of taken a downturn in the late, around 2004, 5, and
Yeah. Such a shame, because there was some cool stuff coming out back then.
No. And Top Cow had lost their newsstand distribution, and so they were in a place to give the big money like they used to. So I was making, I think, $105 for pages for The Darkness, and and I asked them, I definitely would love to come in and work with you guys, but is there any way you can give me a raise? And they said, we can maybe give you 110. And I was like, that's probably not going to do it.
Yeah. Because it would take ages to do a page. Like, what? I mean, you're talking a day at least, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean,
when I drew that issue of The Darkness, I was doing it at night after I'd come home from a full day of working in advertising. So I was working all night on that. Then I'd go to the ad firm in the morning and just try not to fall asleep. But
that is brutal. And how old were you at that point in time? Did you still have the stamina to do that?
I was in my mid-30s. I was like 34, I think. But
I'm 35 now, and I can't even imagine working that hardcore. Well, I mean, if it's something that you totally love and you're obsessed with it, sure. But I mean, after a full day of work at advertising and then coming home to somehow get back in the zone to work. I mean, did you have like a wife, a girlfriend? Did you have a life outside of work? Because I mean, I can't imagine how you had time for that as well.
Right. You didn't have a lot of extra time. I had a girlfriend I was living with at the time down in California, but and I actually did some work for DC. I did a book back during the Sinestro Corps War they were doing. I did a book. It was the Cyborg Superman special they did for that.
Yeah, right.
And that was amazing. I loved working on that project because I got to draw Superman and Wonder Woman and Flash and Batman, and like it was just such a dream come true. And I was hoping that would lead to more, but it didn't really from DC. My editor didn't end up staying there very much longer.
Oh, okay, that's a shame.
Yeah, and I did some Star Wars work for Dark Horse, and that was really cool too. That was before that, and I did like some Star Wars Empire, that whole issue of that, and that was incredible too. And I was actually up to get the Conan book they were going to do, but I had to do sample pages for it, and I was competing with other guys, and they ended up giving it to Phil. I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name, but anyways, he
somebody.
Yeah, he was amazing, and I could see why they picked him. But I was like, I was really hoping I'd be a Conan artist, but
Yeah, right.
yeah.
So are you still in advertising today? Is that kind of like your day job or?
No, I quit advertising around 2010, and
Okay.
yeah, I ended up coming back to Spokane. That's where I'm living now, and
Yep.
I tried to do advertising remotely from here, but it wasn't. You
Yeah.
had to network down in LA, and that was the magic of being there. Was that everybody was an artist, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. And, oftentimes it is who you know, who you're still in contact with. And, I often think about going back into the real world and getting a proper job,
Right?
because I do everything from home. I'm working in the How to Draw Comics Academy. I'm in charge of it all. So it's nice to be your own boss. But sometimes, you know, it can be up and down. And you have your days where you're the only one there to hold yourself accountable. So, I mean, when that alarm clock goes off,
Yeah.
if you don't pull yourself out of bed, no one else is going to. So, it's I think that's probably the hardest part of running your own business is just making sure that you stay disciplined enough to actually make the thing work.
Yeah.
But every now and then I think about, oh, what would it be like to go back into teaching or go back into the games industry. So that's where I was working for a
Oh,
little
really?
while. Since we don't have much of a comic book industry here in Australia,
Okay.
sadly,
Huh.
a lot of my comic book work actually came from the wonderful US of A and all the creators that needed my talents over there.
Oh, interesting.
But
Huh.
yeah, and I do a cover here and there for the Phantom and for
Yes.
other artists and comic book makers out there. But yeah, for the most part, it's just the academy at this point in time. And my point is that you know all the connections that I had within the game industry, within the teaching world.
Mm.
I don't know. I could hit them up and be like, "Yeah, dude, is there any openings?" I'd be like, "Wait a
Right.
second, Clayton. I don't know." Like my skills would be so like if I was to go back into the game industry, my skills would be so outdated
Mm.
because that world just moves crazy.
Oh, especially
Talk about
these days. Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
and now they're starting to use AI for that too. So I mean, I'd be really out of my depth there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I didn't know you worked on Phantom stuff. That's really cool. I did a Phantom
yeah.
trading card, and it was for an Australian company.
Oh,
Uh,
did you? Yeah, it's probably through the Phantom publisher here.
it was the same company that did the pit trading cards, and I actually did some of those too.
That's amazing.
And so
Awesome.
that was really cool. But I want to see some of your Phantom work now.
Oh, thanks. I'll have to send it to you afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's interesting because I think there's something to be said about having that dream as a comic book artist, getting into the industry, working on your favorite stories, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, but then the cold hard reality is there's not a whole lot of money in it.
Right.
And so
Right.
when met with that, sort of have to start thinking about our options, especially if you want to support a family or you actually want to go out and have a comfortable life. It
Right.
can be difficult to do all of that just on a comic book artist's wage,
Yeah.
especially because comics are so taxing in terms of the amount of work that they require from you as an artist.
Yeah.
And I feel so sad about that because you'd think with all that labor and love that goes into creating those pages that we would have the paycheck to show for it, right? I
Right.
mean, unless you're a famous artist who can demand like $1,000 a page, because I would, I mean, if I was doing this based on an hourly rate, that's how much I'd be charging because I'm spending like a week a page.
Right. No, I know
I'm a
that.
slow artist.
Oh man, I think yeah. I mean, I can tell by looking at your work that you put your love into every page. So I mean,
Oh, for sure.
that's why it's so good.
Yeah, and
But
and no one tells you this as an aspiring comic artist looking to get into the industry, that the wage, unfortunately, it is going to be a situation where you're doing this for the love of it more than anything else. You're definitely not doing it for the money. There's way easier things to do for money, but then a little opportunity has opened up, I think, for those comic dreamers.
mhm.
That's crowdfunding.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that you may have latched onto that
yeah,
recently, Patrick. And
sure.
so tell us about what inspired this particular endeavor that you've found yourself jumping into now in the world of comics.
Well, I would for the last few years I've been working on some independent comics, and one's called Kane. That's this book
Yeah.
here, this
No,
book.
I saw that. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? So that's Patrick's work, everybody. I
Yeah,
mean, what a talented dude.
oh, thanks.
Look at that.
Working
It's
on that.
nuts.
Thank you.
Can we
And
see the interior at all?
what's that?
Can we see a little bit of the interior?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe like your favorite page or two?
Let's see here. Let's see if I can find something cool.
Yeah. I mean, you got it. You got that 90s detailed work.
So
Oh,
here,
look at that. Amazing.
yeah,
Beautiful stuff.
very inspired by the '90s. Kind of seeing the
Yeah.
visuals and all that stuff. But
It's good to see that.
yeah,
It's so good to see that still around. And
yeah.
I think it's important to have artists like you out there, Patrick, still inspiring the world with your skill set.
Well,
You know, I know,
I
I
appreciate
know,
that. Like, and I know there's a lot of people watching this with it, along with us that have, like you're saying, have a day job, but they're making their comics at night, and they have that dream, that fire in them because they want to tell comics stories, and that's something that makes us all brothers. I think that when we make
Mm,
comic books, we have a kindred spirit inside us that's so unique today in this day and age,
yeah,
so I love all the people in your classes and stuff. They're just like us, and those are our
oh,
people.
absolutely. And,
Yeah,
my hope is that they're going to learn the craft, create the most amazing comic books the world has ever seen,
yeah,
inspire other people in their wake, and and I think that that's one of the most powerful things that we can do, Patrick, and that the previous generation can do is actually share those skills with those up and coming comic book artists,
right,
those who want to put the same power and energy into their art.
yeah,
And the impact that it leaves on readers is just something that they take with them as well.
yeah.
I think it's amazing what it's an amazing legacy that we're able to leave with our art. I think more than money, that's probably why we do it.
I
But
agree. And like you were saying, now with crowdfunding, everybody with a dream has a chance to achieve that dream just on their own,
yeah,
without having to go crawling to all the big companies looking for that big break. You can just create your own comic book and put it out there for the world to see and hopefully sell it.
and
And
what's so cool about it is you can connect with the readers who are going to pick it up. Like we're getting to see the guy right now who is creating. Let me refresh my memory here. Thunderbeast 509.
right, right, the next big thing.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to take a look at that campaign in just a bit. Don't worry about that. But I'm going to look at some of the cool artwork that Patrick's got happening within it. But yeah, like we're getting to see and talk with the creator of that book, what
Yeah.
his views of the world are, his beliefs, what inspires him. And I think that that's just a connection
Hmm.
on a level that we've never been able to experience before with a comic book creator. Like we never had that with Todd McFarlane or Mark Silvestri, not unless you were like Patrick working in the friggin' studio. So
No, and
yeah,
that's the neat thing because you don't have to work on Spider-Man and tell Spider-Man stories, even though that might be a dream of yours. But it's like you can create your own character and create your own like legacy. And like Todd
absolutely.
always wanted his Spawn to be something that his grandchildren would be reading and live beyond him. And we can all do that now thanks to crowdfunding. So I think what a great tool that for this new generation of artists to have. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess you saw the success of Kane. That was the book you were working on previously, right?
Right.
And that kind of planted the idea inside your own mind that, hey, maybe I could kind of pull this off myself.
Right. Well, what happened after Kane? I started working for another company, a studio called Akira Crush, and that's Isaac Bell and his wife Alexa
Oh,
Love. And I
nice.
actually joined their studio, so I'm part of Akira Crush now. And so
Cool.
we did a
I
comic.
love Isaac. He's
Yeah,
awesome.
He's an awesome guy and so talented, and so is his wife. And
Yeah.
so we did a comic book called Hex together. And they're just finally, they got the books from the printer finally, and they're going to start shipping those out this month. But that book, that's one of those ones where everything just worked. We had such great synergy and chemistry as creators that everything in that book just, I felt like it just succeeded. And that doesn't always happen, with a team. So
yeah, totally. So you all got along, you had that chemistry happening, everyone was feeling inspired and pumped.
oh yeah,
That's great.
And I've always loved Isaac's work. I've known him since the old MySpace days, and we would
Yeah.
talk about comics and stuff, and just seeing him blow up into the huge success he is now, and his artwork is so cool. He's another one of those guys that's got that it factor with his work.
It does. Yeah,
cool.
he does.
Yeah, you can see the passion in every page and every drawing he does. And
It's soul, it's energy, and it's unmistakable. And that is something, I know it's difficult not to get into the whole AI conversation every time we artists talk, but I do think that that's something that's missing. It's like this unseen substance that real human created art has. You know that it came from someone's mind, and it wasn't just their mind, it was who they were as a person.
yeah,
And that's what makes it magical.
exactly.
It's part of them. It's an expression of them. And you can feel it as the reader. I swear you can. I never necessarily bought into that too much, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting older and I'm losing my mind. But I feel like that's really there. Yeah, I do. It's a magical thing.
It is, yeah, and it just takes a certain kind of person to want to experience that magic and create it for themselves in their life.
Yeah.
And so after I did Hex, I was like, my dog had just died, and that kind of inspired me, because I always told him we were going to have adventures in heaven as
that's
a
beautiful.
god, and he would become a dragon, and so that was my impetus. I wanted to tell that story of that adventure of a thunder god and his dragon in heaven having like adventures with demons and all that kind of stuff. So I started writing that about a year ago.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so I finally, after Hex, I finally had an opportunity to just sit down and start drawing it. And so I've started sharing the work about a month ago, and now the Kickstarter is going, and it's just an attempt to just draw all the things I love in the world. I've always wanted to draw monsters and kaiju and gods and dragons fighting demons, and I just one of the things I also love is create. For a while there, I was also doing like concept art, trying to become like a video game concept artist, like you might have been.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's exactly what I was. Yeah.
Yeah, what I learned back then is I love creating like scenery, like a establishing shot, where, like, you can see a temple with some waterfalls and crumbling statues and an insane, beautiful new world that didn't exist before you came up with it. And that's what I've really indulged in with this book so far, is just creating worlds, and
totally.
Yeah, and I just, you get addicted to that, and I just want to bring the reader along with me into this world that's in my head. And I'm so proud of the work I've done on this, and I just feel like I'm just getting started. So it's a really exciting time for me, and I'm thrilled to be working on something that's my own writing for the first time. And,
for sure. I think we got to get it up here.
Oh, there it is. Yep.
Yeah, there it is. Let me see if I can zoom in. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I mean, look at that. Look at this lovely lady that Patrick has drawn up, and I'm going to be uploading this episode to the actual podcast. So some of you might not be able to see this right now, but if you're watching it on the YouTubes or some other place, this is some glorious art. It really does feel like a flashback, a time jump to the 90s.
Oh yeah.
And
that's my sweet spot, is the 90s stuff. And I just I'm also kind of influenced by a lot of the beginning part of this story takes place in a black and white world, like a prologue kind of situation. And I'm also really inspired by things like Berserk, like the Japanese manga.
Love Berserk. I mean, with Kozor, that's what we were inspired by.
Oh, really? I could see that with Kozor for sure. Yeah,
sure.
Just the idea of, and just doing it in black and white with a gray tone, it just has that quality of looking like manga art almost. But the colored pieces that Nestor Regula Jr. has done for me, which are just beautiful. He's such a great colorist. To me,
It's just
yeah, that reminds me of like when I would see Michael Turner working with JD Smith on Witchblade, I always wanted to work with a colorist that had that same kind of sensibility. And I feel like Nestor has kind of got that quality. So
oh, for sure. That is some beautiful colors right there. It's just popping right out at you, and
yeah,
it grabs your attention immediately. And
yeah,
that's what you want from a comic book. It should grab you by the eyeballs
right.
and glue them to the page.
Yeah, and like you, I like detail. So I mean, you can probably tell I just love drawing all the little stuff and just like I don't know. I always wanted to create a book that had the same kind of legacy that like Mike had on Witchblade or Andy
Yeah.
Park had on Tomb Raider. They did like
Mhm.
24 issues of those things in a row. And I thought that's the way to create a legacy for yourself is to do a
Mm.
big long string of comics that are all you and get a great colorist and just a good team and just tell a story that the fans can
Yeah.
get into.
And it really is a legacy because we look back on those artists and the work that they did, and we get inspired, and it encourages us to create our own awesome work.
Yeah.
And it'll be decades and decades and decades later that we're still appreciating their art.
Yeah.
I mean, th- it's kind of like being a Roman emperor in a sense. Not to compare artists to Roman emperors, but I feel like we do get written down in history as examples,
Mhm.
influential examples of the expression of society from
Oh,
that particular time.
yeah, I mean,
And
we're still talking about Michelangelo and Da Vinci to this
yeah,
day, hundreds of years later.
absolutely.
And being an artist is a way to create immortality for your soul, almost. You know?
And it truly is. I
Yeah.
mean, some of our favorite comics and the artwork within them was created by artists from way back in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. I mean, that's when some of the best work was created. It's really amazing stuff. And to be put down as a artistic legend within the comic book world, and to be able to inspire others like that, I think is just, I mean, now that is something to really live for
Yeah.
and to pursue the craft for, I think.
I remember when I was a kid reading Herb Trimpe comics, and I realized
Yeah.
adults are getting paid to make these things. So ever since then, I was like, I can't do anything else but this. This is what I'm
Mm.
doing with my life. And my parents were like, well, maybe you should try architecture. You get to draw on that. And I was like,
Yeah.
I went to an architectural firm once, and I was like, nobody here is drawing monsters. I don't want to do
Yeah.
this.
No, totally. I
Yeah.
went to do a graphic design course at uni when I was first, coming out of high school. I was
Yeah.
looking for my next big thing, my next phase in life. I'll go into university and I show my portfolio to a graphic design teacher. And they're like, no, you don't want to enroll in this course.
Oh, really?
Like, we do boring stuff here. We do like logos and, you know, page designs. You're an illustrator. So, yeah, I get that. Absolutely.
All that stuff comes
Um,
in handy, though, as an illustrator, for sure.
oh, no doubt about it. Having that ability to compose a page in an aesthetically pleasing way, that
Yeah.
negative space like you were talking about, sometimes that's as important as all the detail.
Yeah.
S-
Yeah.
See this stuff. This is why I wanted to hire you back then. Look
Uh,
at that. That's
yeah.
crazy. I love it.
Oh, I love doing stuff like that. And you know what's sad? Like we brought up AI a couple of times, and I was really, really excited to become a painter, a
Yeah.
digital painter, and I was loving it. I did that whole comic book called Crown of Fire that was a painted graphic novel.
Yeah.
And that was so much fun. And I thought, this is my future. But now that
Mhm.
AI has come along, it really feels like it's diluted people's interest in highly detailed painted artwork, you know?
I think it has a little bit possibly. I'm wondering if people can still tell though the difference between whether or not it was generated by AI or whether or not it was actually created by a real artist.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I just think our feeds and our social media is so full of endless supplies of really incredible looking artwork that's all plagiarized from other
Mm.
artists through AI. And people just scroll through that. And if your art happens to be one of those things flying by them, they might not even realize that wasn't AI. And so
Yeah. No,
that
totally.
that depresses me because I really love painting, but I think I decided I'd much rather tell stories through the comics, using the traditional black and white, line art, and just use that shorthand to tell stories and just do it quickly and just get my artwork out there to the world in a way that only that artist has the vision for. It's a very personal thing,
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's why you got to, if you're going to be a comic book artist, that's why you should be. Because, yes, guess what? There's always been competition out there. There's always been awesome artwork. Yes, AI has like flooded the world of the internet. But at the end of the day, we do this because we love it. We just love the challenge. We have ideas and visions that we want to put out there into the world. And I think that may be the meaning of life for most human beings, is to express themselves in some way. We've chosen comics to do that. And I don't think we should let AI stop us from doing that. We shouldn't be discouraged. I mean, that may be why it's even more important to make sure that we as human beings continue to express ourselves artistically.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, this is some great stuff. So, this is one of my favorite pieces, actually, this guy. I mean, he just looks like he walked right out of Witchblade.
Right. Got the Angelus big horns kind of thing.
Yeah.
I definitely I'm wearing my love of the 90s on my sleeve with this project. And yeah, I love all that sensibility from the 90s of just, big shoulder pads and pouches and things everywhere, and like flowing capes and long-haired heroes and anti-heroes. And yeah, I just love all that stuff, and I'm glad you can see that in my work because it's definitely the core of who I am as an artist.
Oh yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. It's definitely there, that magic.
Oh, yeah.
And so yeah, I'm definitely going to pick up a copy of this book, and I can't wait to hold it in my hands to experience it. And from what you said before, it does have some important meaning to you.
Yeah. The initial part that launched it was just that whole idea of this idea of having an adventure in the afterlife, that where there's no rules. It's just the limits of your imagination is what creates the world, and just have it be that kind of a personal thing. It has a bit of a John Wick sort of origin where he loses his dog and that inspires him to go on a rampage and through heaven and hell. And so
that's so cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah. It's fun.
So does he lose his dog, or does he have a dragon that he loses?
He loses his dog in the mortal world, and then he finds a way to project himself astrally into the afterlife after a lot of like other things that frustrate him. But he goes into the afterlife. He goes into the bardo, where he's on this. You'll see when you go lower into the thing, where he's on a boat going through the bardo, and the bardo literally means the space between islands, which is an analogy for the transition period between two incarnations of life.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, yeah, I think the Egyptians actually believed in something like that too.
Yeah, it's a very common thing. So
man, that's spooky. When these civilizations that never met each other, never knew about each other, somehow come up with the same beliefs. Right. I don't know. There's something going on there.
Yeah. There's a whole lot about the prehistory of this planet that I don't think we understand.
I know. I love that.
Advanced civilizations and all that kind of thing. Yeah, I love that stuff too.
Yeah. We might have to have another podcast episode where we get into that stuff.
Oh, I would love that. That'd be so fun. I'd just talk your ear off. But,
we would talk each other's ear off for sure.
Good. Yeah. So basically this character, he ends up going and he has to climb this towering pillar that's covered with sculptures and art. And it's kind of like it represents his life. And so he has to climb this thing to get from the bardo into the astral world, which is heaven, basically, which is he has to kind of pass this test and climb this thing to get there. And once he gets there, he goes on a quest to find his dog, who in heaven is a dragon, basically. His spirit is a dragon that happened to be a mortal dog, And so same kind of thing with the lead hero here. Once he gets to heaven, he realizes a lot of things happen where he comes to realize he had been a god all along, but he had been put in a mortal form on earth as a punishment because he had been not a very good god.
Yeah, right.
So he has a mixture of like thunder god and dragon demon hybrid in him. So he's got to kind of learn to bring out the good and suppress the bad.
Mm, this is amazing. Wow, look at his face.
Thank you.
Incredible stuff. Yeah, if you can't see what we're looking at on the screen right now, we're seeing something real detailed and kick-ass. I mean, this is a masterpiece of some kind. How long did it take you to create this page?
Couple days for sure.
What? Just
Yeah.
a couple days?
Yeah.
Would have taken me a good month.
No. You know, that's a sideways 2-page spread because,
Wow.
like I was saying earlier, when I saw those first Creech pages that were sideways, I'm like, and Isaac does a lot of this in his work too, which really influenced me, where you can just do it sideways and you have this big canvas to work on and play with. And so that's what I'm doing with a lot. All these are 2-page spreads that you're looking at here.
Oh,
So
that's great.
this is the guy climbing through his memories. They're all like statues built into the cliff around him.
I love that idea.
Yeah, and it's just kind of showing him everything that happened to lead him to where he's at right here. And then this is kind of more the flashback where he has a breakthrough where he's so frustrated at God, he starts screaming and defying God, and then suddenly this light from a star comes from heaven and just bathes him in some sort of magic. And then he lets out a scream that becomes this magical yell, and it brings the thunder and lightning to the earth, and he just gets transported. And the next pages that aren't here are of him kind of escaping his body. There's a kind of an Alex Gray moment where there's like all this crazy like psychedelic stuff all around him as his spirit escapes from his body and goes up into this spiraling afterlife thing. And then he meets an angel that sends him on a quest to go climb this thing. And then after this point, this is a few pages later, this last image. And then once he reaches the top and he puts his hand on the top of the cliff, suddenly it becomes color. And then the next you see full color, like his first view of heaven. And it's like he's walked from the drab mortal world of black and white to right into one of his comic books that he used to draw. And it's
that's cool.
It's like a colored like Top Cow comic book. So
that's so awesome. So something like this.
Yeah, it becomes that. And then he meets all these gods and demons up there, and that's where the adventure really begins. And a lot of it is just like battles between demons and gods. I started working on this piece last night. Oh, you probably can't see it.
Let me see. I'll get it up here.
Because I realized I didn't have a lot of battle stuff in that.
Oh, that's great.
But this is just something. I'm ready.
That's all right. No, that's good.
Yeah, so I just started this last night. I'll give you an idea of how fast I kind of do these things. But you can kind of see my other structure there. And then I just draw right over it in ink in the computer. And I kind of I don't do the full pencil stage anymore just to save time. I just kind of draw right in the ink.
Oh, damn. I don't know how you do that. That's crazy.
But yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And
you just started that last night?
Yeah. Yeah. So
no, that's talent.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm just so in love with creating comic art that it's just my passion and my love. And I think everybody watching this show understands that.
They can see it coming through in you.
Well, I'm sure they have it in them as well. You know, this kind of love for comic art and creating art. And it's such a great thing that you're doing, you know, sharing your talent and your skills with all your students. And I just think that's awesome. You're training the next generation of Todd McFarlane's and Jim Lee's and Mark Silvestri's, you know. And
thanks, Patrick. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah,
it means a lot to me.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of which, speaking of the next generation of upcoming master artists, what advice do you have for them when it comes to capturing that delicious 90s flavor that got us inspired to get into comics in the first place? What do you think are the key ingredients that make that work? That if they started integrating them into their art, they'd be able to create a similar vibe?
I think what differentiates to me like the 90s comics from modern comics or even older comics than that is just that it's hard to put it in words, I think, but I think we talked about it earlier how like with Top Cow, the Top Cow method was there was always like every page has like an anchor panel, and not every page can be this way because if it's all the same, it stops being interesting. But like,
Yeah.
there's usually like one big anchor panel that has like just every like a poster almost embedded within like the storytelling panels that might be circling around it in an orbit, you know. And Joe Benitez was really great at this kind of thing. And he'd always make these little tiny panels where you tell the story, but it's still beautiful art. But there was always like one hook panel to each page that was just like you just wanted to put it on your wall because it's so beautiful.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's the 90s thing that we all fell in love with is that idea that it was just beautiful art that was also telling a story. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I think that it's just hard to. I think we talked about it earlier too. How Mark Silvestri would teach us to know what not to draw and how to lead your eye through the page, where you're not just filling up every nook and cranny with detail, but just finding negative shapes to leave around what's important that are interesting in and of themselves. You know, if you ever look at a Mark Silvestri figure and you just look at the negative space around it, it's always a really interesting shape. You know, there's there's not just a big block. It's like there's things going in and out and curves and like sharp, jagged edges leading your eye here and there and out. And I think that's a quality that those guys had in their art just intuitionally. I mean, they just did it. And yeah. But if you try it, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I just gonna say it's one of those things that's hard to teach, but when you start noticing it, you start realizing this might be what separates mundane art from like stuff that really sticks with you and is powerful. Is this idea that it's the iconic shapes almost that you're creating within the art in the page that is somehow creates it something magical, to me at least. So.
No, for sure. And I think you're right. After a certain amount of time, this stuff, it becomes intuition. And I think when you've gone through all the ups and downs, the obstacles, the challenges of learning this stuff, and the headaches of not being able to get what you see inside your mind down onto the page and the epicness that you see it as, when you've gone through all that and you've learned the techniques to be able to capture it, and it becomes still challenging, but it's a fun kind of challenge. It's like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yes.
And you know that no matter what you come up against, you're going to be able to solve it. And that those mistakes are probably going to lead to something better anyway. So you almost look forward to them. I think that's when the intuition starts kicking in, and you start, rather than thinking, you start feeling how that artwork is going to play out. And that's a really nice point to get to. And anyone in training right now, if you stick with it, that's why it's worth the journey. Because when you get there, it's like you're a sculptor and you're able to create just the coolest stuff and enjoy the process at the same time.
Yeah. That's neat that you said that, because one of my favorite books is The Agony and the Ecstasy by the story of Michelangelo. And and he always said that great illustration mirrors great sculpture. And if you ever look at like a Dave Finch drawing or a Mark Silvestri drawing, you could see that thing as a sculpture, you know? And
no doubt about that. Yeah, you really can. And, you know, speaking of Mark Silvestri and David Finch, and you were talking about how they were able to just capture that beautiful balance of negative space and ultra detailed intricacy within their art. I think that one artist probably who influenced all of them is for sure Frank Frazetta, because Frank Frazetta, I was looking at his black and white work just the other day, actually. There's a certain simplicity to it, but at the same time, there's an incredible energy and intricacy within the compositions that you see. And he's beautifully elegant in the way that he executes it. Like what I noticed, one thing I'll give you guys from Frank Frazetta's art, you know, as artists, we all worry about what we're going to put into the background of our work. Well, what I learned from Frank Frazetta is that you can have a character, and if you're able to create a little bit of a platform almost for them, with just a little hints of environmental symbology, let's say that you got a guy roaming around the forest. If you put a rock there by his feet and you put a tree next to him, Frank Frazetta knew that that's all you needed to create a sense of place within an illustration. And I thought that was so freaking smart.
Oh yeah.
So switched on. I mean,
I think you called it big time. Frank Frazetta was the guy that I think inspired all those image guys and all artists of our age and even the generation above us. And when it comes to what you're saying about like how to design a page or a cover image or a poster, another guy who's great at that is Mark Silvestri. If you look at his work, he has this really amazing way of creating the triangular, iconic structure to something. You mentioned the
beautiful composition.
Put a rock there, put a person on the rock, and you've already got a statue,
Yeah, and it looks good. It looks really good, and it doesn't require the amount of work that we initially think we're going to have to do to make something really epic and amazing for the background. So sometimes it truly is the case that less is more when it comes to your art, and you've got to realize that less part of the equation is truly an important part of it, right? Is as important as all the detail.
Oh yeah.
And that's something I've been teaching to my students lately as well, is just really trying to strike that balance, because that's what makes the detail so impactful in the end, is that it's offset by the negative space.
Exactly.
So yeah, well, it's been an amazing conversation with you, Patrick. Before we wrap this up, I'm going to just go through the chat real quick and acknowledge the wonderful viewers that have tuned into this conversation live. It's amazing to see you all here, and we thank you for your support. We have Ran Inc. TV joining us. What's up, man? It's great to see you here. We've got Elena B., who's had lots of wonderful things to say about you and your art. She says, that new illustration, Patrick, just started last night is fire.
That's my girlfriend, to be honest.
Oh, nice. Beautiful. Well, no wonder she's such a fan. We got Sheldon joining us. What's up, Sheldon? Great to see you here. He loves what you're doing too, what you're putting out there. He says, sweet page. We got Chuck Gibson. Says, loving the work you've shown from this on Instagram, Patrick.
Great inker, great artist, Chuck.
Isn't that awesome? I mean, look at all that support you're getting. You got some amazing people out there who are just really, they got your back. They're looking forward to what you're going to be putting out for us all, and to that story that's so close to your heart, it's so meaningful. I think that's what makes it awesome.
Yeah, so glad everybody tuned in. That's so cool of you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we got some students from the How to Draw Comics Academy here. We got Matt Nicola. What's up, Matt? Great to see you tuning in. Matt's loving what he's seeing. We got Arcadian Comics. So this is James. James is joining us. He's from the Academy. He's loving what you're putting out as well. Even though that wasn't what he was saying in that comment. But he's here. He's supporting you. Look at this. He's dropped a link to your Kickstarter.
Oh, very cool.
By the way, speaking of the link to the Kickstarter, it is in the description of wherever you're experiencing this podcast. So be sure to click on it. Take a look at the Kickstarter page for yourself. I mean, look, me sharing the screen here isn't going to do it justice. You gotta click on the link. You gotta jump onto that page and look through your art. Take the time to really absorb it. And even if you don't back it, heck, do yourself a favor and be inspired by it.
Well, I wanted to give a little gift to the viewers of your show. So I put down a thing. If you want to
oh, wow,
capture that, pause that, you can go to that address at the top there, and you can download the prologue preview I did. It's a PDF. You can download it from that website, and so you'll have like a little bit of a sample of what the book's all about. So that's just for your viewers exclusively. So,
oh my goodness, that is amazing, Patrick. Thank you so much. Everybody take a screenshot of that and make sure you pick it up. I'm definitely going to. How awesome is that?
Thank you.
I mean, what a great idea too. So you got those marketing skills,
Oh,
Patrick.
man. No, I really appreciate everybody that's tuned into this, and like if you check out the Kickstarter, I hope you like it. And I mean, it's just I have the same kind of passion in me that Clayton has. It all comes from the '90s, and if you're a fan of that kind of stuff, I think you'll be a fan of what I'm doing. Hopefully, so.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. Okay, Rex Mogi, another wonderful artist in the How to Draw Comics Academy, says, I'm really curious, what is something other than the fundamentals and having a master artist at hand to level up your art? Something small that we can all sink our teeth into. Okay. What is something other than the fundamentals and having a master artist at hand that we can use to level up?
That's a good question. I wish there were easy answers.
Yeah, I know, right?
One thing that I remember that Mark always told us is that you're not a professional artist unless you have a mirror sitting by your drawing table. So that helps you get, anytime you look at your artwork through a mirror, you can instantly spot your own mistakes. And I'm sure you've taught your students this as well.
I do all the time, flipping that canvas backwards and forwards constantly.
It's amazing what you spot the second you do that you didn't see before. And you're like, it's like you're looking at somebody else's art for the first time, and you can just spot that arm looks funny, or that head is too big or something. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Sure. Yeah, let me see. Yeah. I think finding whatever it is that ignites your passion. And I know that seems like a cop-out answer, but hear me out for a second. Because if you've got that thing it might be an idea, it might be a message that you want to get out there into the world. Heck, it might be the movie that you saw last night, just really hit a chord with you and it made you want to create something awesome. I'll tell you what it was for me recently. It was a random post on Instagram, and it was a panel from some kind of sci-fi comic, and the dialogue in the panel was profound to me. I just thought it was a really cool message. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Unfortunately, I wish I could, because then I would sound profound. But the point is that that hit me, and I'm like, wow, sci-fi really can be an incredible philosophical vehicle. And as a man with lots of philosophies, it made me want to create a sci-fi comic. It filled me with some juice, some energy. And I think when you can find something like that, really hold on to it, because whatever challenges you come up against in your art, it's going to push you through them. It's going to help you to overcome them. One of those days when you're not in the mood to draw, it's going to get you picking up the pencil anyway. And I think that's one of the most important things to have. So try to find that, and when you find it, hold on to it, and no matter what happens, use it as a reminder. Right? Use it as a reminder, because sometimes as artists we feel lost, we fall off track, we're not sure whether or not it's worth it, why we're here, and having that to anchor you is going to be something that comes in very vital in some situations to you, some moments as an artist.
Well said. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Find what inspires you and put it into your art. Sure.
Absolutely. Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, again, we got Hell Monkey, we got Jose. I saw that he popped up in here. John Apple, the Art Jedi. Great to see you here, man. Wow. Awesome. I feel so honored that he was tuning in.
Oh, Art Jedi. Yeah, that's Joshua.
Yeah. And yeah, just so many other people. I apologize if I miss anyone, but I do appreciate all of you, and so does Patrick. Be sure to support him. Grab that link in the description below and share it with your friends, especially if they're into comic books, because I think, if we can get more awesome artwork out there like Patrick's in front of people, especially, the younger generation, that's really what's going to keep the lifeblood of comics flowing. And so I feel very, very grateful that you're out there still doing your thing, Patrick, still making your comic books. because I feel like it's somewhat of a dying art form in some ways. It's not completely dead. So I don't think it's on its way out too soon yet. But
it'll still be around for sure.
I'm just saying, there's other things encroaching on the focus of individuals these days within the entertainment world. Lots of distractions, and sometimes just disconnecting, making a coffee and reading a comic book. It's a peaceful experience, I can tell you that.
Right.
Awesome. Well, any final last words, Patrick, before we call it a day?
I just want to thank you and all your viewers for tuning in and listening to us talk about our love of 90s comics and comic art in general. And I'm glad that there's still people out there that enjoy the same passion that we have for that stuff. And so, yeah, and I'm just grateful for anybody that can go check out the Kickstarter and help out or share it, like you said, with your friends, and just keep making beautiful art, and we can all just create a new generation of wonderful comics for the world to enjoy.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I feel like I want to draw something after this conversation. My goodness.
There we go.
And I hope you do too. All right. Well, till next time, everyone. Keep on drawing, keep on creating, and we'll catch you again real soon. Bye-bye for now.